All right, people. Fight week. Joshua versus Dubois. Prediction time. People, I can't emphasize enough how much I'm looking forward to this fight. This fight, obviously, is being shown live on the zone, pay per view, extravaganza, of course. Have a look there on screen. If you follow the link that we provided in the description and pinned in the comment section, you will get a link to the zone website. You'll see some of my content up there. Hopefully, this video as well. And 7-day free trial, loads of great fights coming up, loads of cards announced, not just for Saudi Arabia, not just part of Riyadh season, but also UK based shows as well. Sonny Edwards versus Galal Yafai has been announced for November. Great stuff coming up. I cannot emphasize that enough. In terms of this show here, this is obviously part of Riyadh season. It is Riyadh season's first show in the UK. It's happening, of course, in Wembley Stadium. Let's have a quick talk about the undercard, just very briefly, because I might not get a chance to necessarily cover all the fights, that are in question here. Mark Chamberlain, who is Turki Al Sheikh's guy. You have Batti versus Hutchinson, and this is not in the order they'll be on fight night, you would imagine. But I love this fight here, Batti versus Hutchinson. I think it's a very, very good fight. I was very much guilty of writing Willie Hutchinson off going into that Craig Richards fight, very much so. Very much so. He performed very well, and Craig Richards, really, it looked a big gulf in class. Now, Batti is a better fighter than Craig Richards, in my opinion, but when is the last time he's really looked good? There was moments against Dan Aziz where he did look good. Yes, Joshua Batti, certainly late on in the fight, stamina is still there. But it's an interesting one, and I was in the Element group, Hatman's Element group, the other day, and someone made the very good observation that maybe Batti will be jet lag going into this fight, and maybe that's one of the reasons. And something like jet lag, could it affect him? It potentially could. I would still make him favourite in this fight over Willie Hutchinson, just in my opinion. I think he's just more talented. However, he is getting up there in age. He's been pro a long time, and there's not really been, what's his best win? Dan Aziz? Really? So, there's a lot, and you could argue and definitely make the case that Willie Hutchinson beat Craig Richards far more convincingly than Joshua Batti did. So, that's going to be an interesting watch. Josh Kelly versus Ishmael Davis. Now, obviously, it was meant to be Liam Smith was the original opponent. Davis steps in. He's coming off the back of a good win over Troy Williamson. And Josh Kelly obviously beat Troy Williamson a couple of years ago, but this is a 7-day notice job. I can only admire what Davis is doing here. He is not afraid to put that O on the line. He is not afraid to step in on short notice, and he will go in there against Josh Kelly. Had it been Liam Smith, I would have been picking Josh Kelly to win the fight comfortably on points, because I think Liam Smith has seen better days. Against Davis on short notice, he is coming to win. He's not coming for a payday. He's not coming for any of that. I believe he'll come to win. It'll be interesting to see, but I would be leaning towards Josh Kelly just based upon the fact that Josh Kelly, although it is a different style, Liam Smith's more a pressure fighter, but 7 days notice is not a great deal of notice, to be fair. Anthony Kakache versus Josh Warrington. Apparently the IBF title will not be on the line, and for me, I'm not upset at all with that. According to BoxRec, the ever so greatly prestigious, well-regarded, highly sought-after IBO title is on the line, but the IBF title isn't. Now, I personally have no problem with this being a non-title fight. I think it should be, realistically. It was only announced this week that the IBF would not be recognising this as a world title fight. However, apparently the fighters have known in advance for a little while. Again, no problem with this being a world title, or with this being a non-title fight. Josh Warrington coming off the back of 2 successive defeats and never having fought at all at 130 pounds, certainly not a championship level. It shouldn't be for a world title. So look, if Warrington gets the win, then maybe they can do a rematch if it's a good enough fight, and it can be for a world title if he gets the win, of course. So I would imagine, though, Kakache, the form book tells me Kakache is the guy to go with. Tyler Denny versus Hamza Shearis. I believe that might actually be the co-main event for the EBU title. Tyler Denny, I have the utmost respect for. A man who has not been defined by losses. He's not been defined by setbacks. and he is on a great run of form. EBU champion, full European champion. Most fighters, if they were where Tyler Denny was a couple of years ago, if you said you're going to be EBU champion, they would literally bite your arm off. I'd be like, yeah, give me that. If that's all I do, that's an amazing achievement, and it is. He's going in there against Hamza Shiraz, who I think is phenomenally talented. I think he's getting better. He's going from strength to strength. I've seen him fight live. Taken aback by how big he is for middleweight. Like, this guy looks like he wouldn't be out of place at light heavyweight, and he's in there at 160 pounds. It's phenomenal, really, that he's able to do that weight. As good as Tyler Denny has been looking, and the form has been, and that win over Felix Cash was a dominant win, this is a different beast altogether. So I will be making Hamza Shiraz favourite. That is the undercard, and now we get to the main event. You know, I had a thought before recording this video. Anthony Joshua against short reigning champions is 3-0. If you think about it like that. When he beat Charles Martin for the IBF title, he picked up his first world title. Martin had only been champion. He won it in January. That was, I think, April the 9th. If I'm not mistaken, that was the date, 2016. He was only champion for a couple of months. Only a handful. One of the shortest reigns in history. When he beat Andy Ruiz to reclaim and become a two-time heavyweight champion, Ruiz beat him in June. The fight happened in December. Again, not even a year. I'm kind of giving away the pick there, aren't I? But if he beats Daniel Dubois, because Daniel Dubois has only been champion for a handful of months, he beat Filip Hrgović for the interim title on June the 1st, match in Queensbury, and Alexander Usyk vacated a couple of weeks later. So really June to now, so you're talking about 3 months, thereabouts. It's not been a lengthy reign. So that's a bad omen maybe for Daniel Dubois in this fight. And maybe the big bad omen is that Daniel Dubois is in there against Anthony Joshua, who is more accurate than Filip Hrgović. He's a bigger puncher than Filip Hrgović, more talented than Filip Hrgović, and both Jarrell Miller. And Daniel Dubois in those two fights, albeit as good a wins as they are, he was getting it lit up like a Christmas tree, certainly against Filip Hrgović, as you'll see there on screen in the first round with all those shots he was getting hit with. I still look and think how he got through that first round. First 2 rounds is beyond me, really. The shots that were going in by Daniel Dubois were going in against Daniel Dubois, I should really be saying, were big, and he can ill afford to do that against Anthony Joshua. He really can't. Let's have a talk about this fight, and we'll talk about key strengths and key weaknesses. So when I look at this fight on paper, for me, there really is only one winner. However, when I look at this fight as well, I think that another winner is the fans, because I just cannot see this fight not being entertaining. I can see this fight being so much fun, so entertaining, and ultimately I think it will end devastatingly either way, regardless who wins. If Dubois wins, it'll be devastating, and if Joshua wins, likewise, I think it'll be devastating. I don't envision this fight going the distance. I cannot envision a 12-round points decision either way. There are many things I could see going this way in the outcome of the fight, but that's not one of them. I cannot see it at all. I think that this fight is going to be pretty much from the opening bell, boom, it's going to be good to go in terms of action. There won't be feeling out. Anthony Joshua can feel fighters out. Sometimes he does do it, or a lot of the times he does do it. He likes to kind of establish a tempo, set a tempo, have a look at the guy. Against Daniel Dubois, I don't know if he's going to be able to do that, because Dubois has a habit of coming out. He doesn't come out like Mike Tyson did in the first round, but he'll come out and he'll look to actually start putting it on the fighter fairly quickly with jabs and right hands. He did that against Joe Joyce. He's done it against Hrgović. He's coming out and making you almost have to think, oh, I wasn't expecting a pace this early. It's not a devastating pace or anything like that, but I'm going to have to work. Okay, I'm going to work. I'm going to see how that goes. Now, Hrgović fell into that trap. You can argue that it is something like that. It is a trap almost, where he started letting big shots go, and he probably thought all his Christmases came at once, because he was letting big shots go. Dubois could not get out of the way, and if you see on screen, the one time Daniel Dubois did actually attempt to put a bit of head movement in there, he was so off balance, he was completely open for more shots. So Filip Ergovic kind of fell into that trap where he was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. I'm going to light this guy up like a Christmas tree. I'll be gone by round number 3. Well, Dubois was still there. Dubois seems to take a decent enough shot. He has been down in fights, like against Alexander Rusek, where personally I feel that was more him capitulating mentally as opposed to him being concussed. Against Kevin Lerena, who is not even a bigger puncher, in my opinion, as Alexander Rusek, he was legit down. The first knockdown anyway. That is a bit of a worry, but you do look and think, what kind of mindset was he in back then in comparison to now? Because he seems a lot more sure of himself. There's a little bit of trash talk from Daniel Dubois. There's a little bit of bravado there, which wasn't there in the past. What kind of mindset is Dubois going in there with? And if you go into a fight with a kind of a shaky mindset, even if you are the overwhelming favourite, you could be getting hurt with shots that otherwise wouldn't hurt you. You know, your gas tank is depleted because you're thinking about, oh, what's going on. And when he fought Kevin Arena, it would have been his first real kind of big event, because that was obviously at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. They were there to see Tyson Fury, of course, but it was a fairly full stadium. It was the kind of first real time he would have had it. Because at the time, if you think about it, Daniel Dubois was either fighting very small crowds, because I think when he fought in 2021 in the UK, it was reasonably small. And then he had 2 fights in the States, and one of them was in a little leisure centre in Florida. So, you know, he certainly wasn't going anywhere near the big arenas. Certainly wasn't that. So how did he handle that occasion? Against Alexander Rusek, you could argue he didn't handle the occasion the best, but I think that was more down to him just being completely outgunned by Alexander Rusek as opposed to the occasion. Because people are talking about the occasion in Wembley. I don't think it's going to have that much of a bearing on him, to be honest with you. And people say, oh, well, he's been to 2 stadiums. He should be used to it. Not to this size, but he should be used to it. And going back to what I was saying about him being dropped by Lorena, that could potentially be one of the reasons why he was down so early, that he just needed to get his bearings and get everything kind of working mentally. Against Filip Ergovic and Darrell Miller, he had those moments where he looked like a fish out of water, but he came through them, and ultimately Miller wasn't able to hold the pace. Certainly Hrgovic wasn't. By the end of round number 7, Hrgovic could barely stand. You know, he was barely let his shots go because he was so fatigued, and then he's shifting punishment on top of that. Against Anthony Joshua, Dubois is probably going to want to come out slightly aggressive, but not hyper aggressive. He's going to want to establish that jab, which is phenomenal. You hear people like Dave Allen speak about it and say that it's one of the hardest shots they've been hit with. And that, interestingly, there's more power in the left hand of Daniel Dubois than there is in the backhand, the right hand of Daniel Dubois, which is, you would think that it would be the other way around, but apparently not. If you go and look on screen, you'll see Joshua versus Helenius, and you'll see that Joshua is having a think there. Now, Robert Helenius is not a particularly good heavyweight, never was. We're not talking about a peak Robert Helenius, nothing of the sort. But Robert Helenius' jab was able to keep Anthony Joshua thinking. It was able to keep him having to second guess certain things and unable to take risks in their fight last year. Now, Daniel Dubois' jab is every bit as good as Robert Helenius. In fact, I think it's actually better and probably more powerful. It's one of the best jabs in the heavyweight division. And someone with a good jab like that, you know, you could be a fighter who is significantly faster. You could be significantly faster than your opponent. You could be significantly more athletic. But if you're put on the end of a really good, solid jab, and that jab is getting doubled and sometimes tripled, it leaves you in a position where you can't really do much because you just kept on the end of a jab the whole time. Now, I suspect Joshua has the longer arms, the longer reach. But if he gets into a jabbing war with Dubois, you know, the old saying, you can jab with a jabber. But Joshua, when he's come to jab with jabbers, it's not always been ideal for him. However, with Joshua, he is one of the sharpest punchers you'll see in the heavyweight division, and he is hitting a lot harder nowadays by the looks of things, certainly under Ben Davison. And if you look on screen against Povetkin, look at the right hand he lands on Povetkin. Now, when he was able to take Povetkin out, it was a left hook that dropped him for the first knockdown, which really, that was the end of the fight. If you look at what he was doing, and Joshua has a tendency to fight like this sometimes, and someone like a Daniel Dubois, who's very upright and very open to shots, that's going to be a nightmare for him. And what I mean is, Joshua has a tendency to drop that left hand. And that's his style. Sometimes he'll fight like that, with the left hand down low. So it means then you're always having to look both ways. You're looking down at that left hand to see what is he doing. Is he going to throw it straight to my body? Is he going to come up to the top of the head? Is he going to hook off that left hand? Because you can hook off it when it's down low. All right, you can lead with a left hook. At the same time, you're looking at that and thinking, what's that left hand? Jeez, what's that left hand going to do? I'm going to throw him. What's that left hand doing? All the while, you're having to focus on what the right hand is doing as well. And Joshua jabbed to Povetkin's body, up with a right hand. That really did it. That right hand was it. You know, Povetkin was starting to obviously see fairies at the time, and Joshua combination, it was done. Set up by that crucial right hand. However, there is one thing that Dubois does that many of Joshua's opponents don't do, even some of them who've had this name as their nickname, which is body work. Now, Dylan White is the body snatcher, and in their fight, way back when, nearly a decade ago now, he did go to Anthony Joshua's body, but he didn't invest that much in it, which I think is a mistake. I think that if you do invest in Anthony Joshua's body, you could have a lot of success. Alexander Usyk is probably another example of someone who did. Alexander Usyk with that straight left hand to Anthony Joshua's body, every single chance he got in both their respective fights had a telling effect on Anthony Joshua. Daniel Dubois is one of the few big men in the heavyweight division who actually makes an effort to attack and go for the body. If you are up against the ropes, if you are standing, away and your hands are up and you can't really pierce that guard, Dubois is happy to go and just throw shots to the head, into the body, into the body, into the body. He will do that, and they tell. And someone who is as heavy-handed and as tough a puncher as Daniel Dubois, they will take serious effects on the fighter. So Joshua needs to be careful with that. The most crucial punch that I think Anthony Joshua is going to have in this fight, and the most crucial punch that Daniel Dubois is so open to, it's not even funny, is the uppercut, the right uppercut from the orthodox stance. Why? Because Daniel Dubois has an awful tendency to lean forward when he's letting his shots go. He leans forward, goes over that front leg, and that chin is like, hit me, uppercut me. And Joshua's uppercut is, ask Klitschko, ask Pulev. It's no joke. It's no joke. Ask either of those guys. And I think that's ultimately going to be telling. I think that Dubois is the biggest puncher Joshua's fought since Klitschko. But punching power is only one element to your game. You need a lot more than just that. And I think with Dubois, youth and brute force won't be enough. I think with Anthony Joshua's sharper punching. Now, there may come a moment in this fight where Joshua is legit buzzed. He's legit stunned. And he might even touch down. Wouldn't even rule it out. Ultimately, I think that Daniel Dubois is just too easy to hit. I think Joshua hits too hard. And I suspect from rounds 3 to 6, we are going to see this fight end in devastating fashion. And Anthony Joshua right hand, either dropping Dubois, he gets back up and Joshua finishes him off. Or it's an accumulation that Dubois takes some of these shots, but he takes such a beating that either Don Charles or his dad say enough, it's done, we're finished. That's my pick for this fight. Anthony Joshua to win this fight between rounds number 3 to number 6 or maybe 7 in the first half of this fight. Now, Anthony Joshua will want to be very, very careful of one thing. If he does hurt Daniel Dubois and he steps on the gas and goes through the gears, if he doesn't get rid of Daniel Dubois, then we could have a real interesting thing on our hands here, because Joshua, he will need rounds off. We've seen it before against Klitschko, against Pulev. When he opens up and he hurts the guy and he can't get rid of them, he needs to let that air build back up in his lungs. He needs to just take those few minutes off, take those few rounds off, get the air back into his lungs, get a second wind. Someone like Dubois, who has very good stamina, if he puts it on Anthony Joshua during the time when Joshua doesn't want to work, we could be in for a real treat. I don't think it will get to that, and I will be picking Anthony Joshua to win this fight via stoppage, rounds 3 to 7. Realistically, I think it's going to be either a devastating knockout or an accumulation, one or the other. I can't see Daniel Dubois winning this fight. So that is my pick. I can't wait for this show. I genuinely cannot wait. And I will be doing a live watch along certainly Saturday night, and I hope you will all lock in. My pick, Anthony Joshua to win this fight, devastating knockout, rounds 3 through 7. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, people, I hope to God you enjoyed it. Smash the like button, hit subscribe. Peace.